my name's Emily, and I'm back for part 3 of this, well, technically part 2 of this branding series. The first video was just an introduction, so this is part 2. And today we're going to be talking about what is brand identity. And as I said before, I'm still following through on this book here, Designing Brand Identity. And I'll be stepping through some examples that are on page 4 and 5, as well as including some examples from other YouTubers. So let me just quickly kind of set up everything that we're going to talk about today and then go from there. So I have a section in the beginning about some questions to ask yourself. And then I'm going to step through some brand examples from the book. And I have 6 of those. And then I'm going to talk about branding as it pertains to YouTube specifically. And then I'm going to just step through some of my favorite YouTubers and just give some general thoughts about what I feel or don't feel about their branding that speaks to me. And then before I start that whole section, I'm going to talk about how I chose these people to be included in this cross analysis here. So, okay, let's start at the beginning here. So the first section is questions to ask yourself. And I don't have too many for this section, but I'm just going to rattle them off like I did before in the last one. And then I also have notes for all of these videos on my website. So you can either use that outline to follow along, or you can come back to it later and copy paste things into a Word doc and work on things for your own brand. So today's questions are, what is your brand's sensory experience? And does your currently branded element communicate your brand? Why or why not? And what does your brand evoke for each of the senses? So the senses are smell, taste, touch, sight, hearing. And some other bonus senses that you could maybe think about are hot and cold, awareness of your body, balance, hunger, thirst, emotional branding, and just the overall energy of it. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about the questions first, because I'm going to come back and then describe, you know, what do I mean? Like, what is brand identity? So first of all, what this book seems to focus more on is what does brand as it pertains to like a sensory experience. And those are just things that I just mentioned, like sound, taste, and touch, and that sort of thing. And so they have on the pages that I'm going to talk about, they have all these different examples of branded elements from different angles of sensory experiences. And it's a little hard to do a cross analysis between like what's in this book and in YouTube, because with YouTube, you're limited to only a certain subset of senses, but you could still maybe abstractly refer to another sense, such as maybe touch, by if your YouTube channel is very cozy and warm or that kind of thing. So before I get into that, I just wanted to talk about these brand examples that are in the book itself. So it's a little tough to do this. You may notice that the recording looks a little different today. It's because I'm actually recording this through Zoom. And I wanted to be able to share my screen while I talk. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see the video of me talking while I'm doing that. So that's something I'm still kind of working through. And when it comes to these branding examples, I'm just gonna have to like hold the book up to the screen for now, because I didn't get any of these pictures in my outline. So like one of the examples that really stood out to me in this book here is the Coca-Cola can. And Coca-Cola is an obvious one for the brand, or I'm sorry, for the sense of taste, because every time you pick up a Coca-Cola can, you know you're going to get a consistent experience, especially with taste or the bubbles in while you're drinking it, or the sweetness. and it's a really intense experience too. Sorry, excuse me. Another thing that they pointed to in their branding is this like little Italian car for a place I'd never heard of. It's called L'Arte del Gelato. Sorry about my pronunciation if it's really bad, but it's actually an ice cream shop in New York. And I looked it up online because I wanted to see what's the deal with this car and how is it related to ice cream. But it looks to me like it's excuse me, it's first of all, it's an Italian car. I believe it's a Fiat, I'm not sure. So they're tying in that like Italian culture in with the ice cream. And they have this car that they either park out in front of the store and people like pose taking pictures of themselves with this car. So it's all part of like the ice cream experience. I was thinking to myself, like, well, can you deliver ice cream in this car? Like, wouldn't it melt? And I don't know, maybe they do use the car for delivery. I suppose if you have good refrigeration, then you can do whatever you want. And then of course that would be so that's branding from an experience perspective, and of course taste. And then of course we've got the Starbucks cup here, you know, that's another great branding example. And, you know, even though what you're experiencing is coffee, that's like the soul of the content, but the brand itself, you know, as you're experiencing Starbucks, you're experiencing, you know, modern, crisp design, or elegant cafes, but are also scalable. So you could go to any Starbucks in the world, and even though it may have some of the quirks of the building that the cafe is in, usually when you step inside, there's like signage, or maybe the furniture is all very similar, that kind of thing. So, and then that would be smell. Oh, definitely smell. So you walk into a Starbucks cafe, I mean, you're overwhelmed with the smell of coffee. So they're definitely getting a bang for a buck when it comes to the sensory experience of Starbucks. Another one that they have in the example, and I thought this was very cool, is they have this little brochure for the Museum of Modern Art. And the art itself is actually user experienced. You know, they give you a brochure of the Museum of Modern Art, and then they want you to draw on it, so it's blank. You have to put your own art, and that's a brilliant way to get some audience participation in the experience of art. And then another one, and this one I selected for the touch. There's like these cute little Kleenex boxes. They're really quirky. They're like a watermelon and an orange and a lime. They're just these kind of quirky designs. I've never actually seen them on the shelf. As I said before, this book is a few years old. So if that was a product design at one time, I don't think you can get it anymore, but it's kind of a cool idea. And I'm not sure like where they were going, like trying to connect fruit to Kleenexes, but I just pulled that out as for Kleenex in general, what you're trying to show customers, or what with Kleenexes, you're going to be experiencing the softness of the product, and you want it to be durable and soft. So they have more of a touch angle for their branding. And then I didn't have an example for audio in this book because obviously we can't listen to a book. But I was just thinking of a great example of audio branding is the Google Fi commercials. They have these little songs that they sing about the product. And I enjoy listening to the song because I thought it was actually pretty well done. It has these like little cartoon animations that go through. You have to check that out. So taste, smell of coffee, the experience of ice cream, you know, taking a picture with the car, the touch of the brochure, like participating with the process of art, the touch of the product itself, so like softness of Kleenexes, and then of course like the audio of your product, whether it's like a jingle or a little song that you've done for your advertising. And so any brand has all of these different a sensory palette of experience that you can work with. So if you think about your brand from each of those different angles, like how it relates to touch, audio, sound, smell, then you can figure out how your brand is experienced under each of those umbrellas. So if you do this well, then you can pick up one piece of your brand, like the Coca-Cola can, and experience the entire brand just through this one Coca-Cola can. So branding on YouTube, that's a little tough, right? Because I'm talking about the sensory experience, and with YouTube, of course, you have visual, you can see the video, you have audio, you can hear the video, but there's some of the more abstract things that you could work with are taste and smell. If you do cooking videos, or if you're showing videos of like food, or like let's say you're out in nature and you're doing a video of a forest or something, you can kind of almost imagine like the earthy smell of it. If your videos are sufficiently rich enough that you can sort of imagine some of these other more abstract senses that you can't experience in the moment, but you can kind of go with the person that's taking you on this journey. And another thing that's a little more abstract is touch. So, you know, you may have like a warm or a soft, a cozy brand, or you might have a really polished, clean cut, minimalist brand. So I think you can still convey some of those senses without actually being able to experience them yourself. So that's something to keep in mind. So just moving on to this next section, I did a whole bunch of research on some different YouTubers out there, especially ones that I felt were doing well in the branding department. And I'm just gonna quickly talk through them as it pertains to the sensory angle. And I might say a few things about what I like about this channel. But I'm not gonna get too in-depth on any other things, because, you know, the rest of this book that I'm going through is actually kind of a mystery to me. Like, I have not looked any further than page 5 or 6 or 10. Like, I've done a few outlines for the next videos, but I haven't worked beyond that. So I might be coming back to these YouTubers again and again as I start to fill out their branding profile, because I think that it's really important, if you're going to brand anything, is to compare the people that are in the space that you're working with and figure out what works and what doesn't. So I think so I've got this list of YouTubers, and this is going to be pretty high level, at least to start with. And I'm going to try to share my screen here in a second, but I just wanted to do the quick introduction, and then it'll be just audio from there on out. So who did I pick? I picked from YouTubers that I'm already familiar with. Like, I listen to their videos a lot, so I kind of know what their particular style is and what kind of content is on their channel. I also picked people who are individuals as opposed to brands. Like, I didn't pick any videos from Coca-Cola because that's a corporation. And I'm trying to pick from channels that are people like myself, because that's who I am. And then I tried to pick a variety of videos from different topics, such as psychology and medicine. I have 4 channels for that. I've got some commentary, like news, got 6 channels for that. And some of them I might end up skipping just because of time. For diet and weight loss, I have 2 channels that I wanted to share. For comedy, I've got 1. For religion, I have 3 channels. For lifestyle, I have 3 channels. And then at the end, if you go to my video outline on my website, there's a whole bunch of special mentions at the bottom that I definitely didn't have time to cover, but I wanted to give like a kind of a breadth of different types of content that I'm experiencing on YouTube. And so I already touched on this already, but one thing I'm not going to be doing is just going in depth to these channels. And I'm not going to be talking about any other social media platforms, at least not yet. That might be a project that I work on later, such as how they conduct themselves on Instagram or Twitter and that kind of thing. But I'm not going to do that today. This is really just exploring the sensory angle of each of these YouTubers. So that being said, I'm going to share my screen, and yeah, let's do this. I'm sort of working through this one thing at a time here. So, all right, sharing my screen now, hopefully. Okay, so what you're looking at here is my website. And just to give you a little background on like what this website even is, this is Confluence. I love this product. It's just awesome. I do have a professional website that I use, but one thing that I don't like using about like a traditional .com type of website is it's really hard to make pixel perfect designs, and I can do that, but I also don't have a lot of time. So I wanted to keep things simple. And what's beautiful about Confluence is it allows me to just spin up a quick article. It has some really nice drag and drop components, and it allows me to give you like a kind of a visually clean layout. So what I've got here is I've got the whole introduction that I just went through, and I'm just gonna like scroll through and show some of these different YouTubers and then like zoom in on the picture and talk about them from a high level. So the first section is going to be like medical. Some of it is, so we've got some psychology, we've got some like general practitioners, we've got biologists. So this first one here, Andrew Huberman, he's a psychology expert. He is a great communicator. I really like listening to his content because he has these really long form videos, as you can see here in the picture. I mean, some of these videos, most of these, I think are all over an hour long. And he has some really strong branding here, like very simple, clear words in his thumbnail with like a picture, and it's branded with his channel name. And I think that's really effective, the way he does that. And one thing that this is really great for is if you're watching YouTube videos about psychology and you see one of his thumbnails show up in the side rail, you're going to immediately recognize that as his content. And if you're already excited about what he has to say, then that's very likely going to be the next thing that you click on to listen to. So he's definitely a minimalist when it comes to the setting of his videos. It's usually just him sitting at a desk and talking. I think he's a professor, so that's what he's used to. He's not getting too fancy with like different art styles or trying to clip together different videos or string together like a story or anything like that. He's just talking. So it's a pure focus on content. I think that this one could even be a podcast. In fact, he does say here podcast, but you do also see him along with either his interviews. Possibly, I've actually not listened to too many of his interviews. I've mostly just watched these ones with just him. And yeah, he's just sitting at a desk and talking. So I think that's really well done. So this next one, he's Dr. Mike. He's pretty well known, I think, on YouTube, and maybe just in my little corner. That's the funny thing about YouTube is I might think he's really well known, but nobody else has ever heard of him. It's like the nature of how YouTube is they put you into these little algorithmic corners, and they suggest content that you might be interested in. And why, yes, I would be interested in this. Dr. Mike, he's youthful and playful, and I think that really shows just in this screenshot that I have. He can be funny, but he can also be serious when he needs to be, and he's really delivering medical knowledge to a mass market. So it needs to be kind of generic, but I think he's also trying to appeal to a younger crowd. So you can see just in this screenshot, he's got lots of different colors and funny expressions and different fonts. And obviously you can see the content itself he's talking about pop culture as it applies to his medical field, and he's reacting to different medical TV shows. But he also does like internet memes, and he's not afraid to make fun content, and that really, I think, shows here. And he does this he has a catchphrase, beep. He does it much better than me. But like, that's one of the sensory things that you're getting every time you log into his videos. The only thing I didn't like about this one is he's a little bit all over the place when it comes to color and branding. There's no real like solid branding here in terms of that. But I think that his personality is definitely a solid brand in itself. So here we have a biologist. His name is Bret Weinstein. Yes, Bret Weinstein. I always have to think about how to pronounce his last name. And he and his wife, Heather Hyden, have a channel together called The Dark Horse. And theirs is also very, very much content driven. It's just them sitting behind a desk and talking about some topics. And I don't know how they come up with what they're going to talk about today. But usually they try to stay pretty close to current event issues, and they talk about how current events can be better informed from a biology perspective. They have a very complex show, and the subject matter that they're covering is very complex. And I think that it's good that they keep their backdrop pretty simple. It's just them like in a wood, like in a basement or something, and there's like wood behind them, wood paneling. They have a really interesting intro music. They have intro music from the Marble Machine, and you'll have to look that up because it's this really beautiful, moving piece of art from, I'm guessing he's an artist with a coding background, because he built this machine that you pour marbles into the top. And as the marbles flow through the machine, it makes music that sounds like techno music. It's really cool. And I think it's interesting that they selected that particular piece for their intro music, because it I think combines a lot of the things that they're into, sort of that geeky underground. They're not afraid to get into the details, and they also are aware of pop culture references that are obscure that other people don't know about, maybe. So I really like their channel, and I'm still trying to figure out, well, I'll save all that stuff at the end, like how this relates to me. So Dr. Grande, he's a counselor. A lot of his videos are educational, or he talks mostly about mental health issues. I just think it's interesting to hear his perspective on things. He's very knowledgeable. But one of my favorite things, and I think the reason why he's so popular, is he has the best dry humor, and he'll drop a joke in a monotone voice. And if you're not listening, you might miss the joke, but it's just razor sharp. He's so funny. But he's also, I think, really reasonable. Like he'll approach some emotionally hot topics and just deliver the facts as plainly as he can, and stick to the facts. That's his thing. So you can see here just in this, like how he does his thumbnails, is he's got a very consistent branding style here with the blue, the gradient, and then this is like this is the backdrop that displays behind him, which is, it's just a brick wall. Like, it's keeping it really simple. Got a couple plants. I think he keeps his books behind him. So these are all kind of things that I'm thinking about too. Like, what should my background look like? I mean, should I move out of my kitchen to do these, or what? I don't know. So yeah, and he's got like big fonts so you can see the text. Like, if one thing that could potentially be a pitfall for some YouTubers is the font's too small and you can't read it on all the different device sizes. So you have to make sure that font is nice and big and easy to read. So yeah, it's got a very simple, it probably takes like 2 seconds to make these little thumbnails. I'm not even sure if he's wearing a different shirt in each one of these. So he's probably just whatever he happened to be wearing that day, and then drop in an image and some text and call it a day, you know? So Ben Shapiro. Okay, so now I'm getting into the commentary section of this. There's a lot of YouTubers that I listen to for politics. As I mentioned before, this particular channel isn't going to be too focused on that, but it is. I'm being influenced by these people. So I've got 6 different YouTubers here, and just from a high level, like Ben Shapiro, he's obviously got a lot of production power behind his videos. And I get the feeling that it's a small team, but they have a very clear and consistent brand voice. And the person that's, of course, the anchor for the brand voice is Ben Shapiro himself. And so I think that he can be a little bit incendiary. Sometimes that makes it hard for me to listen to him because he's just so dramatic, you know, but he's also delivers everything with just this fast-paced voice, you know. And I think he can be kind of funny too. It's not really like an obvious humor. In fact, I think whoever's doing his thumbnails has got more sense of humor than Ben Shapiro himself does. He does these like little Photoshop I can't even talk, amalgamations of like, you know, photoshopping Biden's head onto top of something. So, I mean, take his politics for what they are. I mean, you take it or leave it. It's him. This is Ben Shapiro. So I think he uses news clips to shed light on hypocrisy. And he's also appealing to the viewer's emotions. It's like if he can push a button, he will push it. But he always does it with a very polished presentation. Like, so whenever he's delivering his news of the day, he's in this like very polished looking newsroom behind him. He's got a very nice looking computer in front of him and he's reading off a script or whatever it is that he does. So Benjamin Boyce, he's also into politics. I would say more on the culture, the gender issues, and just ideology in general, like highlighting ideology when he sees it and discussing it. He has a very consistent delivery style. Whenever he's talking to people in his videos, his half, it's always this like one half screen, and his half, he's always sitting in what looks like a completely black room. And his head almost looks like disembodied, like it's just floating out of the black square. And it's a very high definition camera that's on him. And it's just him talking to whoever guest that he happens to be talking to. And he's very chill. It feels like you're listening to a private conversation between himself and his guest. It's similar to similar to Joe Rogan in that way. Yeah, and he takes things at his interviewee's pace too. Is he's not afraid to, because he has time and space to allow a conversation to unfold. He's not afraid to take it at their pace and to just, he asks very good questions while he's interviewing. So, and for me, the key phrase for him would be chill. It's really easy to listen to him. He's so chill. Blaire White. She's so funny. I like watching her content because she gets into that kind of incendiary stuff too. She's got this very unique look though that's different than say Ben Shapiro. It's a very polished look, but it's completely different from Ben Shapiro. I sort of get this feeling of like bubblegum and Starbucks and Barbie doll all combined. And that's sort of the vibe. She's got this like trendy Valley girl look. And she's talking about all these different people that are on the web, either as influencers or, you know, just different stories that are popping up in the news that her followers want her to cover. So she'll do like a react video or that kind of thing. So she does talk about tough subjects too, but she often delivers it with poise and compassion. And I feel like I've watched her grow up and mature over the years. Like when she first started out, maybe she wasn't as diplomatic as she is now. I think she's done a much better job of kind of like chilling out a little bit on that. So it's been interesting to watch her unfold. Joe Rogan, he's been in the news lately. I do follow Joe Rogan. He's kind of gone a different direction. He's not really considered a YouTuber anymore. He'll still post clips on YouTube, and it's obviously a very consistent style here in the clips. They're usually short, looks like somewhere between 2 and 15 minutes. And he'll like display a thumbnail of who he's talking to, and maybe like a screenshot of some of the topics that they covered in between them. And I like that. It's super simple. The green is kind of ugly, don't you think? But I mean, it's so recognizable because nobody ever uses that green anywhere else. I would say it's interesting that he positions, or his show is called the Joe Rogan Experience. And many of his guests have talked about the experience afterwards and said, it's like being in a time warp. You know, you step into that room and you sit down at the desk with the microphone in your face. And Joe, he's such an open, honest person to talk to. It sort of makes you want to open up to him. And even though it feels like you're having a private conversation, there's millions of people watching it. But when you're there in that room with Joe, you don't really notice that. And so you, the viewer, get to experience the conversation in real time and just watch it unfold, watch it wander in different directions. And he's really the pioneer of this format, I think. And I think it was getting more popular, but he really took it and ran with it in a way that has made him as successful as he is now. So great job, Joe. He's kind of under the weather right now in current events, but I think he'll pull through. So Scott Adams, he's another guy that I like to listen to. And you may know him as the illustrator for the Dilbert comic strip. But what I didn't know about Scott is that he actually has, I think he's got a master's in economics. And he has some real life experience in a cubicle farm in a traditional office building. And that's where he gets all of his inspiration for his Dilbert comic strips. But I think he's maybe distancing himself from that role a bit as the illustrator for Dilbert, because he has a lot of these other interests that he's in. Like, so he does this show on YouTube every single day without fail, 8 a.m. Central Time, I believe. And he has a very consistent delivery style, as you can see, like in this thumbnail that is up on the screen here. This is just his office in his house. And he's kind of goofy, as you can see. Like, he's not afraid to make funny faces, or his big thing is this coffee cup in the beginning. So, I mean, it's called Real Coffee with Scott Adams. And his opening shtick that he does is this little thing that he rattles off before you take the simultaneous sip. And I think it's brilliant, because if you're watching live, you can see all these people that are watching live with you at the same time. And if you log in time and you see his video, you get to take a drink of coffee at the same time as everybody else in the world. And I think that's such a brilliant idea. It really, I think, allows you to connect to the other audience members in a way, even though you can't see them. You can see them in the chat. You can kind of interact with the audience members in the chat. I usually don't listen live though. So by the time I'm looking at the live chat, it's already over. But that's just because my schedule just, I can't do that at 8 a.m. I've got other things going on. So yeah, what else about Scott? He's great. Oh yeah, I don't even know the whole thing. It's like, grab your cup or mug, a glass of tea, a chalice, a sign, canteen, jug, or glass, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip. And he always says that little phrase at the beginning, and then that's when the show kicks off. So great job. Great. He keeps it simple. Like, he's not into the high production thing. In fact, he complains probably once a week about something that's gone wrong, like his printer or his tablet or his audio. It's just funny because he's just navigating this space just like me. He doesn't really have any interviewing or video experience, like formal experience. He's just taking a stab at it, you know? So Jordan Peterson, of course, very famous these days, and he's been one of the most influential YouTubers for me personally. I like that he comes at, so one of the topics that I'm really interested in is religion, and he comes at religion from a psychology angle, which is how I discovered him, and that's the content that I was the most familiar with before he got into some of these other types of content, like gender issues or politics in general. But he often talks like, or one of the things that he said a lot in his lectures, and he's very good at like speaking off the cuff. He's got years, probably decades of experience as a professor at a major university. And so he's used to that kind of open format, structured but unstructured type of approach to his speaking. And it feels like you're watching something live, like he's developing the ideas right in front of you. And it's kind of scary to watch him do that, because he goes off on these little rabbit trails, and you just keep wondering, you know, when are you going to bring it back to the main point? And he likens it to being like a high wire act. Is this man on a tightrope, and he's just following this rabbit trail just so carefully, but you eventually bring it home in the end. So just from a branding perspective, his videos are usually just him in his office. You see his office behind him, also very content driven. There's interviews with other well-known thinkers. And if you just look at like just the branding here on his channel, the big thing, which I think is a little weird, that he's got them all in these different languages, but I don't know if he can like control the order of these rows or whatnot, but it's showing this icon is it's like a combination of a labyrinth and a rose. I've looked this up, like what does that logo even mean? And before the show even begins, you see this like labyrinth / flower being built piece by piece until it comes together in a whole thing. And I think that symbolizes everything that he does. Like what drives him is he's often trying to take these what seem to be disjointed pieces and put them all together into one whole. And he also has, I should ask him where, do some research, because he has some intro music that sounds like classical music. I think it fits for him overall. So now we're getting into another section here about diet and weight loss. So I've just got two people here that I wanted to talk about. First one is Beatrice Caruso, and she just calls herself B. And I enjoy her content because she's really funny. She has her own sense of humor, and she's also, I think she's trying to make a living as a graphic designer too, but it seems like this YouTube thing might be taking more priority for her, because a lot of people really enjoy her content. She's funny and humorous, endearing, sweet. So she is in this weight loss journey that I think has started probably 2 years ago now. And she's very analytical in her approach. And she's got these measurements, and she's tracking her weight number on the scale, as well as like the dimensions of her body. And she does these before and afters, and she's trying different things and telling us what works and what doesn't. And just go check her out sometime. She's really funny to watch, and also inspiring, because you sort of feel like you're on a journey with her. It's like, oh, okay, you tried that and it didn't work, you know, maybe that wouldn't work for me either, that kind of thing. So she actually, sometimes she'll prepare food on her channel. It's almost like a little cooking channel. She's like, here's what I'm eating today, you know? And so it can be interesting to watch her prepare these different meals, and maybe get some ideas for yourself on what's considered healthy and what isn't. And she's different diets that she's trying out. So these are more of the taste and smell senses, even though you can't taste or smell videos. And then Abby Sharp, I like her because she comes at it like, this person here, B, she's more from a layman's perspective, whereas Abby Sharp is coming at it from a dietitian perspective. So my assumption is that she's a licensed dietitian. She certainly is. She comes across as an expert on a channel. And I think what she's been doing lately, which I really appreciate, is she's got all these other YouTubers that she'll watch their content and then give them some advice or consult them on their routine. It's not real time, like she's talking directly to these YouTubers. She'll usually take their video and like push play and watch a bit of it and then push pause and then react to it. And it's interesting to see that, because some of these YouTubers you might think have really healthy habits, but she usually comes at it like, here's what you should be doing in addition to, or maybe what she never actually says what you shouldn't do. She's pretty big about that. She's not about a diet that takes away things. She's about a diet that supplements. So I like her perspective, and even just like her branding in general here. She's got just some food shots, a picture of herself. And in the videos themselves, she's usually just standing in her kitchen. And it's called Abby's Kitchen. So she's just standing in her kitchen and talking, and then she'll have like a computer next to her. So it's pretty minimalist backdrop, but there's some multimedia overlays on top of it, like different videos that she's watching and stuff. Charlie Berens. So yeah, I don't have a very big diet and weight loss section. There's some people that I follow, but not very many. And comedy, I've gotten a number of comedians actually in my suggestions down below, or my special mentions, but Charlie Berens, he is the icon of Midwest comedy. So if you want to see what we find funny here in Minnesota, this guy is it. And yeah, he's from Wisconsin, but it's very similar culturally. But his branding is his voice, his tenor, his comedic timing. But you put that in a context of a skit, and he does these little skits that just comment about Midwest culture, or like this one is Husbands of Target, or IKEA husbands, or how did IKEA get their ideas, and that kind of thing. And it's just off the charts good is what I write here. It's so true. That when you see his icon in your side rail, that you're gonna laugh. So click on that. Yeah, but you can see like his thumbnails are not great. Like they do show him and he's playing around with a little bit of font, but it's kind of hard to read it. Like, I mean, even if you zoom in, the color contrast isn't great. This one's doing okay. But maybe that's either his greenness showing or what, I don't know. He doesn't have the thumbnails, and that's not all there is to branding, but I think thumbnails are really important in YouTube. Like you want that to be a solid piece of your branding, and I haven't gotten to that yet for my own channel. So religion. So oh gosh, how much, I don't even know. I'm just gonna pause my share. I want to see how much time I have here, because I know that I have like a 40-minute time limit. And is there like it doesn't show me how much time I have left. Well, I think it'll warn me, and then maybe if I have to make a quick dump, I will, but I might have to like suddenly wrap this up because I still have I'm getting down there. So I'm actually just gonna skip over the religion one for now, just because I might not have time for that. I wanted to get into these lifestyle ones because these guys are definitely more talented in the filming department. And Matt Davella, he's definitely, I mean, filmmaking is his primary skill, and he's using that for YouTube, which is brilliant. I mean, why wouldn't you if you're a filmmaker? Because it's almost like a portfolio of your work on your channel. And one thing I like about his filmmaking in general is, even though it is a little bit cliche, like he does shots of him in his office, or shots of him making coffee, or shots of him sitting on the couch with his wife. And some of that might be even a bit cliche, but he's got his own kind of sense of humor as well. And his big thing are his biceps and his love of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and other little quirky things that he allows to come through in his videos. So it's fun to see his perspective. And of course, I fell into his content because it was minimalism content. But he's kind of stepping away from that a little bit, but you can still see that even though he started out as a minimalist, that his videos are still true to that original message. And he's exploring lots of different topics now. And he's not afraid to experiment and try different things. He has a very clean and polished look to his videos. He has a way of being, it seems like he's speaking off the cuff, but I think he's actually reading from a prepared script. It's not a bad thing. I think that he does that just because it's easier to splice together videos if he can just record the audio separately in some cases. So, and I think one thing I just write down here is that I think if you were to line up some different clips of different YouTubers, I could still point to that one and say, this one is Matt's, because he's got a very distinct way of framing things. And so his videos are definitely more sensory driven than some of the other YouTubers out there, because he's really trying to create like original content. He does use stock videography sometimes, but I think he's out there like with his video camera filming things too. So I enjoy seeing those little perspectives of his life like woven together. And Nathaniel Drew, he does the same thing. I would say these two YouTubers are very similar, but Nathaniel is much more travel oriented. His thing is to live in different countries. And if you look at his video backlog, he's got videos from Spain and videos from France, and he's usually trying to explore the cultures of those places. And he also has a more airy style. I feel like he's more optimistic, and well, they're both optimistic, but you can definitely see sort of like a more flighty artistic spirit in Nathaniel than maybe Matt DeBella. Like, I think Matt is a very like organized and cut and dried and structured, you know, and Nathaniel is about displaying beauty or exploring things from an art angle. Yeah, so you can travel around the world with him and learn about different people that influence him. So great channel. The Cottage Fairy is doing something, in my opinion, very similar to Matt and Nathaniel. And I think, but I don't know, I haven't listened to her or watched her content for too long, but it sounds to me like she recently rented a cottage in the woods, or like kind of off the grid a bit. Not totally off the grid, it's like a rural cottage. And she takes videos of herself in her environment, and she's kind of artsy crafty. So she'll like bake a cookie or make tea, or put like a craft together on video while narrating some of her philosophy over top of it. It's beautiful. It's like, it's not crafting like you've ever seen before. She's definitely coming at it from like a professionally filmed and produced video. Each of these videos is like the most calming experience. It makes you feel like you're just stepping into her world with her and enjoying this little slice of nature. It's awesome. And she has a nice calming voice. And one thing I like that she does in her videos is she has sort of a persona voice that she does during her narrations. And then she also at the end will like log in at the end with her face and talk about, kind of summarize what the video that she just made, and like a more natural self. So she's got a persona self and her natural self. So definitely a great channel. Totally check that out. Okay, so we're wrapping up here. And you can see down here at the bottom of this article, I've got all these different like YouTubers that I'm kind of interested in, you could check those out if you like. So some general takeaways. So yeah, my research consisted of, here, I'm actually going to switch to video now so you can see my face. My research just was taking screenshots of people's homepages, which is kind of an odd place to start because a lot of these homepages are not. Oh yeah, it's still recording. I just wanted to make sure because I wasn't sure when I stopped the stream share if it was still recording. I think it is. So, okay. So I'm taking screenshots of their homepages, which I don't think a lot of people actually see. I mean, when was the last time you went to a YouTuber's homepage? Maybe only to just look for a specific video that you knew that you had watched and you wanted to find it again. So, and they have different ways of, you can organize the content on there. Like you can string together playlists, and then, you know, obviously you see that thumbnail design so much more prominently on your own channel, and you're looking for consistency there. So that's something that I'm probably going to be working on here pretty soon. It's figuring out how I want my thumbnails to look, because I haven't done that at all yet. I'm still kind of exploring like the angles that I want to take. Authenticity. I think what I'm most intrigued by is how all of these people that I just mentioned, some of them have a persona, but a lot of them are their own authentic self. Like who you see on camera is how you think you'd probably see them as in person as well. So I don't know whether or not that's actually true. I'm assuming it is, but and so from the authenticity angle, I think you should just lean into what you know, and you know yourself, and just be yourself online. It's a lot easier. Like if you're gonna do this over time, then you want yourself to come through, because if you have to force it, then it's just exhausting, you know? And one thing I would say, just from this experience of looking at all these YouTube channels from kind of a high level, is that professional production isn't necessary, but it does help. And if you can have great camera gear, great lighting, great environment, those are all things that you are nice to have, but aren't necessary. Like you can, like Scott Adams is a great example. I mean, he's not even in a very well lit office space. It's kind of dark. It's in the morning. It's 7 a.m. where he's at. In fact, it might be 6 a.m. because he's in California. So it's like the sun hasn't even come up yet, and it's not a typically well lit office. He's usually just doing his content with a tablet, just like I am. So, and some people have a natural talent in imagery or filmmaking. And if you do, that's awesome for you, because it's going to help you with this. But I don't think that means if you don't have those talents that you won't be successful. I think you can still make YouTube videos, of course. And I think if you do look for your own imagery, what I've noticed is to look for the beauty in the small things. Like offer a way to visualize something that most people would consider mundane in a new, fresh light. So it helps you, I think, as you navigate around the world, just your normal everyday life. You know, what would you show people on YouTube from this new perspective? I think that posting consistently is good. You want to be, it's a lot of these YouTubers that I just mentioned are online at a specific time of day, and some of them are there every day during the week, and some of them even on weekends. They have a very consistent time, and that allows for a dynamic conversation with your audience. So if you can manage that, that's a very good idea. Some people do off-the-cuff statements, or some of them narrate a prepared statement, and both of them are valid. I think the ones that are off-the-cuff still write an outline, which is what I'm using here, and I think that it makes it seem really natural. But you know, you're still following a structure as you're going through. And some YouTubers have very simple setups that never change. They have a pure focus on the content. So even though you see the person in the video, the backdrop behind them isn't too busy or cluttered or that kind of thing. So they're usually just speaking in their office or something. So this brings us to the end of this video. And before I leave, I'm going to talk about my key takeaway. So my key takeaway for this is, if you're going to try something new, do a cross analysis. So a cross analysis is what I just stepped through here. Whatever space that you're trying to get into, explore all of the people or companies that are doing that well, and then compare them. So like the verticals are the people, and then you compare them horizontally as well. So get your spreadsheet out, because it's going to help you. And you can just figure out a lot of YouTube best practices just by looking at their content. So, and then I think another key takeaway from this is to be consistent in your schedule and how you present yourself. So the one thing that I've been thinking about a lot is like when I want to post. And I'm going to try to post on Saturdays at 8 o'clock. And I'm not ready to do live yet. I don't even have a following either. So nobody would be there, I don't think, if I were to do live content. But that may come later, maybe. I've got some ideas on that too. And so the final thing is to just tease the next video, which is going to be talking about what is brand identity. I'm sorry, what is branding? So what we just talked about is just identity from a high level, from a sensory level, like experience. And this one will be more about the nuts and bolts, like the process of branding. And that's going to be high level because this book actually goes more into that process in detail much later, but I'm going to kind of keep it, broad. So, all right. Thank you so much, you guys. I'm going to sign off, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.